Hi. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Get to Know Us, this time with Kofi the Spiderman. We just released Kofi's new album EP today. It's called February 21st. And if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do. And also, a big thank you and shout out to Slug Magazine, who premiered it for us today. They did an interview with Kofi and talked about the album, and it was really, really cool. So please do check it out. And you can find Kofi's album on our Bandcamp. It'll be the first one that you see, and if you're not sure how to get there, there is a link tree in our bio that will take you to our Bandcamp. So I'm going to bring Kofi on. Let's see here. Cool. Hey.
Hey, sorry, here we go.
How are you doing?
Doing okay. How are you doing?
Really good. Yeah,
Good.
how are you feeling about your album release today so far?
Super excited. It's pretty crazy to finally have this out because we've been working on it for a while. Yeah, it feels really good. I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, that's normal. I always
Yeah,
get nervous doing these, so
yeah. All
um,
right, cool. As long as we're in the same boat. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, really exciting news. Last night, I think we sold out on the Lace, and yeah, there. I think we only have like 8 more tapes left. Someone bought a tape, another tape today, so it's really cool. It's going really well. And yeah, that the interview and the review in Slug Mag was really awesome. So that was exciting to see.
Yeah, that was great. I was like super psyched to see that out. It was yeah, such a nice piece.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I guess like so let's get into this. I always like hearing from people just like how they got into music in the first place as like a listener and a fan. Anything you might want to say about that, like maybe a first favorite song or favorite album or maybe first album you bought or anything like that that you wanted to talk about.
Um, yeah, the first album that I bought with like my own money was The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Oh wow. Cool.
Yeah, and that record came out in like 1999. So I think I was probably like 10 years old when that record came out. And I think it's like one of my biggest influences, like just the idea of mixing like rapping and song parts. That's probably something that's been stuck in my head for like 20 years since listening to The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill for the first time.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense actually. Yeah, too. That's really, really cool. That's a great first album to also buy. Like most people's firsts are like much more embarrassing. Like so yeah, so I guess you were ahead of the curve with your
Yeah, I
listening
guess
with your
I did
listening.
something with it.
Yeah, 10 years old. That's pretty cool. You must have been a
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
cool
yeah.
10-year-old.
Yeah, hell
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, so when did you first get into like writing and recording your own music, and how did that come about?
So when I was in college, I like really got into music. I like was not only just like investigating music all the time, like checking out blogs, seeing what's up, seeing like what's new and what's cool, but like I was also very much starting to hang out with musicians. One of my buddies was an electronic music producer, and that's when I first like saw Ableton Live, which is the production software that I use.
Okay,
And
cool.
then yeah, uh, unfortunately, like also while I was in college, I got like really sick. I had a lot of problems or like a big like mental health problem. Um, my world got kind of turned upside down and I found myself not at college anymore, but like back home. living with my parents. And that's when I seriously got into like producing music. I downloaded a cracked copy of Ableton. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not.
That's great.
Because I couldn't afford the actual
Yeah,
version.
yeah.
Um, and just like threw myself into producing music, like sitting down at the computer, trying to put in like an 8 hour day, like finishing a beat every day.
Oh
Just like,
wow,
yeah.
that's really cool.
Um, thanks.
I didn't mean to cut you
Um,
off. I'm sorry.
no, no, no worries. And so like that's when I first started like actually taking producing really seriously. And I was producing a lot of electronic music, which led me down a path to my trio that's kind of like on hiatus. I started making beats for like an experimental noise trio. We're called Arty Slang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, and then like we started playing out a lot. That was my first time like ever like performing out for people, was playing with Arty Slang. But then again, unfortunately, like life kind of caught up with all of us, and the trio just didn't have the time to be like making and performing music all the time like I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of set out to create my own project, which is Kofi the Spiderman, which is like what I'm doing today. Um, that's when I started like rapping, writing vocals, singing, and trying to like produce my own project.
Yeah, that's really cool. So when you were with Arty Slang, were you primarily just doing the production work and not the
Yeah,
singing and vocals?
yeah, that was my main focus, was like production work, like being a DJ and also just like producing beats.
Yeah.
I did, I did have my first ever like rapped verse with Arty Slang, but I'm not the front man for Arty Slang. So yeah, definitely my main role was just like producing and beat making and
Yeah.
DJing. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And you mentioned, like your mental health struggles. So no worries if you don't want to elaborate more, but I find that really interesting how you mentioned that that kind of is what seemed to spark you just really getting into making music. And I'm wondering if there for you that was like a way for you to kind of work through things like a therapy of some sort, or I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on that. No need, don't feel pressured to though.
No, that's cool. I would say definitely like 100% that like producing music and getting into music was kind of life saving.
Yeah.
I like, I mean, when I was in college, I had like an episode, and I was thinking that like my whole future is kind of like screwed up. I'm gonna be like losing these connections with my friends. I'm not really sure like where I'm gonna be working or like what I'm gonna be doing with myself. So it was kind of a godsend to have this thing to just dive into. And it's kind of been like my saving grace, like ever since I started producing music about like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And even, yeah, even now, when I find myself with like, again, struggling with like mental health issues, I'm like super, super happy to have music to kind of pour myself into and kind of like keep myself going.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. That's which is why I wanted to ask you a little bit more about it because I feel like I actually think there's several people with the Malkin in general that like music is kind of a life-saving sort of like a therapy or way to kind of help them cope a little bit better, especially with mental
Yeah.
health struggles. So yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so let's get into a little bit about February 2021 or February 21st. I know we
February
talked about
21st. Yeah.
that.
Yeah. You can just pick whichever you like. I don't know. Maybe it's February.
Uh-oh. Well, we lost Kofi for a second. I am sure they will be back. Okay, let me see. Oh no. It wouldn't be an Instagram live thing without technical issues. Too funny. Let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, so we lost Kofi for a second, and hopefully it's not like their battery went dead and it was just an internet connection problem. If I don't see Kofi in a little bit, I'll probably just stop this for a moment, and then like as soon as I'm able to get them back, we'll like restart again. Hold on. So, well, in the meantime, I'm going to see if Kofi can come back on while talking. We are going to have a listening party tonight for Kofi's new album on our Discord. It's at 7 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time. If you're not sure how to join our Discord and you're not part of it yet, there's a link for it in the link tree in our bio. It should be a lot of fun. If you come by, we'll be listening to February 21 or February 21st. We'll talk more about about that album, hopefully, with Kofi in a moment. And you'll have an opportunity to ask them some questions about their album and then chat with them afterwards. Looks like we might have to stop this then. Okay. Do. Oh, like, okay, cool. All right, Kofi's back. Okay.
Hey, having a little bit of phone trouble.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was like, oh no, I hope their battery didn't die on them. I was like just telling people about the listening party and being
Okay.
awkwardly silenced.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I was hoping you'd come back. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I guess yeah, let's talk about the new EP. And I know we were talking about, like, to you it doesn't matter if you say February 21 or February 21st. But yeah, like how did that album come about and all that good stuff, and like, yeah.
So, like, starting with the title, February 21 or February 21st, like, you could call it either one. I kind of like the ambiguity of it because I kind of like giving the listener space to just like interpret the music as they want and like find their own meaning in it. And I also think it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like try to add like a little bit of humor to the project.
Yeah.
The way it started was like last year I decided I wanted to record like a bunch of material, and I wanted to work like collaboratively because usually I like produce all my own stuff. So I reached out to my friend and collaborator Lillian, and asked her if she had any beats that I could use, and she sent me a beat pack. And I just like sat down and started writing and recording all of my vocal parts. Like it was like I've been kind of stuck inside since the pandemic started, out of work and not really knowing like what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people are kind of like feeling stuck and kind of isolated and may be like struggling with some stuff. And I just needed to like find an outlet, and that's what led me to like start working on February 21st. Yeah, so like I hit up Lil's, she sent me a beat pack, then I wrote and recorded all my parts, and then I sent it back to Lil so she could like finish production, and she did like an amazing job filling out the production of the album. and then she sent it back to me, and I mastered the track. So we use kind of like a tag in process, like tag in, tag out.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. And is this one of the first times that you did work with another producer?
This is
Or
the first like collaborative album. I've gotten some beats from friends before, but usually I produce everything by myself. And this was like the first project where the production was entirely someone else's.
yeah, yeah, that's interesting. What do you think was the driving force for you to try and do it that way for this project as opposed to trying to do the production yourself?
I wanted new ideas. I have like a pretty extensive catalog of songs that I've written and produced myself,
Yeah.
but I wanted to try something new, and I wanted to like bring in a new perspective. And like Wills and I had collaborated before on like one-off tracks, so I knew
Yeah.
we worked well together, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to like run with that. Like just to get, yeah, a new perspective, get out of my head a little bit and see like what somebody else's kind of interpretation or vision of what Kofi the Spiderman could be. If
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. And shout
Yeah.
out to Lil, who does produce under the name Sawtooth, correct? Am I
Yeah.
correct for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lil's, she produces at Sawtooth.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think she's here on Instagram at I forget. Is it something Sawtooth MA for
yeah, I
Massachusetts? I
think
thought it
so.
was
I think
Molly.
I think it's at DJ Sawtooth MA
Yeah,
for
that's it.
Massachusetts. Yeah.
That's it. I'll make sure to tag her on this episode then yeah,
Hell
later.
yeah.
Cool,
Hell yeah.
cool. Yeah, I hope if she's around and can come by tonight, that would be really cool to the listening party.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see her there. I'm gonna check in with her again and see if she can stop by.
Yeah, awesome. Um, yeah, and is there anything else that you wanted to maybe share like about like where what you were thinking about like with the like lyric wise or rap wise? I know you intentionally didn't want to share like the actual lyrics because you want people to just kind of like experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything you wanted to say about that? Like you don't necessarily have to talk about like what it's about, but anything you wanted to say about like 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 the messaging or the words and the rapping and the lyrics and that kind of thing.
So I think I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe it. Um it's a lot of like navel gazing, for lack of a better term. It's a lot of just like self-reflection, and kind of just like you could almost think of the album as like self-portraiture. Like I just wanted to kind of
Okay, yeah.
paint a picture of myself as I am right now, like through music.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to deal with like struggling with mental health issues, like struggling with like identity issues, and struggling with like the isolation of the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, I think it definitely comes across. Yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, like I'm just saying, like since the pandemic started, I've been like basically locked into my studio, just hanging out by myself most of the time, and I needed to like express or like vent what I've been feeling, and like feeling like things from ranging from feeling like I'm locked up, feeling like I've been kind of isolated from people, to like just like yeah, and to longing for like human connection and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I yeah.
Yeah, and I know you were talking a little bit, I think, with Audrey in the Slug piece about how, your music definitely has like, this is something I relate to too, because I feel like it's similar in my music. Like there's this darkness that's happening a lot in your
Yeah,
music, but yet
definitely.
at there's also this kind of like hopefulness, or I don't know, you know, like it's beyond just being dark and like heavy. And I think that probably comes about maybe, like I know in the case of my music, the process of writing music and creating it and recording it is a positive experience, even if the messaging and the sounds are dark. So I think you get this kind of like dark thing as a result that's also kind of like promising and hopeful. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of cool. Like I get that sense with your music. Yeah, I don't know if you.
Yeah, no, I think that that's like a big part. Like, I like that's like a great way to describe what's going on is like I'm dealing with all this like heavy, kind of like dark stuff, but like I'm trying to be hopeful like through the music. Like, I have all of these things that are bothering me and all these issues that are kind of like weighing on me, but by transforming it into music, I'm able to like process it and share it with people. And I think that's like really healing. And I
Yeah.
think that can be like really positive and really hopeful. And I like also try to like incorporate an element of humor into the process because like that's part of me transforming like these dark, heavy things into like something light and hopeful.
Yeah. And there's definitely like phrases too that come through in the words that are like humorous, but like dark humor, you know, like it's
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but, I love that kind of thing. So like, yeah, like that kind of stuff is like up my alley or whatever. And,
Yeah, hell yeah.
yeah, yeah, so I guess I wanted to talk to you too about like your influences. So again, they could be musical influences, but any other kind of influences you might want to talk about. And maybe just folks that you've listened to that kind of stuck with you over the years. Anything like that that you might want to elaborate on anymore.
Um, yeah, so I influenced a lot by like a lot of different music. I have like eclectic taste in music, which I think is like part of the reason that I approached Grimalkin because it just seemed like you guys were kind of on that wavelength. Like we're kind of
Yeah,
all jamming out on some like other stuff. Like I
yeah,
listened to a lot of like folk recently, country music, and a lot of also like metal and like hardcore music. But then obviously like my main focus is hip hop and rap. So I've been listening to like a lot of like contemporary like hip hop. So like
yeah,
I would list as like one of my influences is like Angel Olsen, who like can be completely heartbreaking with like just a guitar and herself. Like
yeah,
um and then like Lauryn Hill, like I mentioned earlier, who I've been obsessed with since I was a kid.
yeah,
Um there's like a ton of like hardcore music that I listen to because my region is pretty big on hardcore music, but like one of my favorite bands of all time is Converge, who makes like metallic hardcore. So like I think I brought some of that like that edge into my music as well.
yeah,
Yeah. Uh and like yeah, also I really like noise, like noisy music and like there's a pretty big experimental like noise music scene where I'm at and I was involved with that scene and like I was playing out with those guys. So I think some of that noise that like that love for noise music also crept into the record.
yeah. That makes sense. And you're in near Lowell, if I'm going to
Yeah.
say that correctly.
Yeah, I'm right near Lowell. I live in a town called Drakeit, but I'm basically always working and performing in the Lowell music scene.
Yeah,
Um, and we are like part of something called like Merrimack Valley hardcore. So like that's where like the hardcore influences come in. And then there's also just like a crazy noise scene where I'm at. Like I don't really know how it came. Oh, okay, so there's there's a record shop and a record store owner who released a lot of like early noise music in like I guess it was the 80s.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah. Uh, and I think because he was like this record store owner from RRR Records, like was one of the first people to release like Japanese noise in the United States. He was the first person to like give it a home, and I think that that was pretty influential on growing like a noise scene here where we're at.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I totally, not to go back, but I wanted to see if you did want to share anything else too about like your production recording process or even show us your home studio. No pressure to or anything, but if you if you
My
wanted.
apartment is such a mess. My studio is such a mess. But
Okay.
like I have a really basic but functional recording setup. Like I have an interface. I have an SM58 mic, which is just like the microphone that you see people like performing live with most of the time. It's not like a fancy like studio condenser mic.
Yeah.
I have like a 2012 MacBook Pro that I'm still running the cracked copy of Ableton on. I have some monitors, speakers that somebody lent me, and then like as of recently, I started like dabbling with guitars and like guitar music.
Yeah,
So
it's all guitar neck when you because you I think you had the phone flipped when you first hopped on, so
yeah,
yeah.
here I got this one. I got the banjo, and I also have an electric guitar sitting over here. So I've been kind of experimenting with those things. It's all like a pretty DIY setup.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, as I would expect. As I think pretty much everybody at Grimalkin, including myself, we've got the little home, the
yeah,
home living room
yeah,
or bedroom setup or whatnot.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's cool. Are you ever like using your like for production work? Are you ever like sampling like live snippets of like banjo or like guitar and like incorporating them in the beat
Yeah.
making?
So sampling is like a huge part of how I make music. And like I used to just always rip samples off of the internet. Like I would just hop on YouTube and then search a song and then download it, sample it. But like
Yeah.
as you know, the world is becoming like the music industry is becoming really hostile towards like that form of sampling. Like a
Yeah.
lot of stuff gets shut down or whatever. Like you can't actually release it because of copyright claims.
Yeah.
So I've started like experimenting with just making all my own samples. Like I have like a simple, like a 2 octave keyboard and then the guitars that I showed you. And between those two things, I've been kind of like recording all of my own samples. And like actually on the next record after February 21st, all of the samples are like self-made. I recorded all the samples. I recorded like guitar parts, all the drum parts, and then all the kind of other melodic kind of harmonious elements. I also recorded myself, and instead of sampling from like other people, which
Yeah.
is becoming a huge pain.
It's getting harder for people to do that without like going through a ridiculous process. I mean, I don't know. I guess, yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
really.
it's
Yeah.
almost impossible to clear a sample these days unless you're like in a
Yeah.
major label system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. Um, yeah, cool. Is there anything like that right now that you've been like listening to on rotation, or have you just sort of been more into like what you're working on and haven't really had time to like really be listening to new music or other people's music?
Yeah, I mean, for the past couple months, I've really had my head down and kind of focused on my own music and like trying to teach myself how to play like guitar and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
listening to, I haven't been spinning anything on regular rotation, but like a lot of the stuff that I'm kind of into right now is from like the maybe like you could describe it as like the New York kind of underground hip hop scene. Like there's some artists there that I'm really fond of that I have been kind of like I don't yeah, I've been influenced by. People like these are not necessarily household names, but like there's a rapper Masai, she's great out of New York. And another rapper Pink Sifu who's also doing a lot of really cool stuff and he's out of New York. So I've been listening to like that underground hip hop stuff. Um, and then I guess like another thing that I've been listening to is a lot of like kind of like futuristic country stuff. Like I think we talked about like just the two of us. We talked about Lucy Dacus and we talked about
Yeah.
Angel Olsen, and like I love what they're doing. And artists like in their class, their like graduating class. I've been listening to a lot of and kind of trying to like fold in these elements of like future folk and future country into like my noisy hip hop.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
All right,
Um, yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about like so the tape proceeds.
okay.
So with Grimalkin, we do we do a lot of different mutual aid in general, and then to try to get more information out there about what other people are doing locally, we always ask our artists to like decide like what's some kind of grassroots organization or mutual aid organization that's doing work in your community, and then and that's where we donate to tape proceeds. So you'd chosen UTEC, and I just wanted to ask you like why you chose UTEC, and like whatever you want to say about that. But that's yeah.
I chose UTEC just because I'm like down with their cause. Like they work with a lot of young adults in Lowell who don't necessarily like fit into more like traditional models of kind of like education and socializing, I guess, for lack of a better term. And they will help them like succeed in some way. Like there are young people who are kind of dealing with like the fallout of gang violence and other kind of like disruptive forces in their life. And UTEC like is dedicated to like helping those young people like find skills that can make them like successful in the future, like
Yeah.
from job training or like degree programs. Yeah, and I was just like, hell yeah. I taught at an alternative high school one summer. I taught like music production
Oh
to the
wow.
students to some of the students there. Yeah. And I was like I've just always been interested in like how music can be politically active and politically transformative.
Yeah.
And so like if I'm going to have my music be politically active, like that's the kind of work that I want it to be doing. I want it to be like helping people and helping young people like succeed in life and like move forward. And I hope that my music is able to kind of like give back to the community in some way. It's like really important to me that the music does that. That it's not just like frivolous, but that is actually like active and politically active.
Yeah, well, that's in line with what we're doing with Grimalkin
Yeah.
Scout. So yeah, it's really awesome. Which makes even more sense why you had reached out to us too. And by the way, we're working on kind of like developing an educational division where we do host workshops and skill shares. So
That's sick.
I'm gonna have to talk to you about that.
Yeah,
Like
please do.
that
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be
yeah.
amazing. Like we're really, we're transitioning to 501c3, so hopefully we'll be able to get some grants and funding on top of like just the grassroots organizing that we're doing to try to get support, like through our Patreon or whatnot. But we want to be able to like, pay people to like host like a workshop series like on production or and things that like a lot of it will be music related, but a lot of it might not be necessarily music related, because we're hoping also to sort of build our connections too with other like grassroots organizations, and like do collaborative workshops too, to kind of bring different types of skills to our different communities, and like in collaborating with them. But definitely, if you're interested in that, I didn't realize that you taught production before. It'd be really amazing to have you do that. And of course, like one of our one of our visions for the future is that all of us at Grimalkin, and just the world in general, like people who have talent, and the average talented musician can make a living wage off of their music, and part of that is by giving back to the community, by sharing your skills and what you have to offer in that regard. And that'd be amazing, like, to have you be a part of that. So we'll have to talk some more about that real soon.
Definitely. That's so sick.
It's in the works, and I'm actually what I'm hoping to do, like in the near future, because right now, like, we don't have the funding, but what I was thinking we could do initially, just to get the ball rolling, was like work with different people who wanted to do a workshop, and like what we could do is like charge for tickets for those folks who could pay, to try to generate some money to be able to give to the person who is like hosting the workshop. I haven't really worked at all like the logistics out, but it would kind of be also, I think, a great way for us to kind of show what we're doing for when we are trying to get more funding from, like, different grants, that we've already like started this thing that could be much better and bigger and much more helpful, and also pay people better, than we're not dependent on just what folks can pay, because we want this to be something where, people who can pay should pay, but for folks who can't, more like a sliding scale thing. And then folks who need skills or want these skills, but they don't have the money to pay, they should be able to have the same access as someone who can. So kind of like, it's kind of like what one of the things we're headed towards. So I'll have to talk to you about this more. If you're into it, we could definitely do something soon. That would be exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and also just a shout out to so for people to know, like, if you are interested in learning about Grimalkin's mission and our values and our vision for the future, you can find it on our website at grimalkinrecords.com, and underneath on our mission page has all that information, and then underneath there are all the different mutual aid collectives and organizations that our releases have supported so far, and it links to all of their websites. So if anybody's interested in checking that out, UTEC's on there, where that February 21st tape proceeds are going to. But please check that out. So going back to you again, sorry I went off on a tangent there. I got really excited though about you doing workshops. So like, we definitely need to talk, because if you're interested, I would love to like kind of get something going soon too in the new year. And and also looking forward to releasing more of your music. Let's talk a little bit about like I guess the music scene and business or industry. So I always, like I was just saying, we really want to change, like create our own systems to support artists, because the current systems and the current, like, with streaming and the way major labels work, none of that stuff works for your average artist. It doesn't work. So I always like to hear from other people, their perspective on things, whether it be like their local perspective on what's happening in their music scene and what they would like to see happen either differently or better, or maybe what's going really cool there. And then, or if not locally, like just in general, like maybe just your perspective on, or both, whatever you want to talk about, like things that you would like to see different within the music industry or business. Like, so, anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best things about the music scene in Lowell is that it's kind of compact. So you have many different styles of music happening like in the same places. And I think that you get kind of like weirdo projects like Kofi the Spiderman, where you're like drawing from all these different influences that you get to see play out on like a regular basis. And like we're as a like a kind of a smaller tight knit community, we're always like hosting DIY events and like trying to support each other, and make the community like welcoming, and yeah, making the community welcoming and like comfortable for musicians from all over to come and play and like share. And I would like to see more of that on like a broader scale. Like you talked about, like making money in music is nearly impossible. Like being able to actually like achieve some kind of living wage is like very, very difficult. And a lot of that has to do with like the major label systems and like streaming services and how they kind of have like, for lack of a better term, monopolized things. It's like it's almost
Yeah.
impossible to really like break into those circles unless like a very like specific set of circumstances arises. You have to kind of like get lucky in some sense. So I would love it. I would love to see like the major label kind of monopoly start to like come down a bit, like so that artists who are independent or working in like small collaborative scenes can actually like earn a living, and like, and if they can earn a living they can keep reinvesting in their community.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely like what we're hoping for and hoping that we'll eventually achieve. And it's probably a long ways off, but I think the key is that we need to create our own systems of support that work for us and our communities. And you can't rely on what exists right now because it's not working. It's not working at all.
Yeah, it's broken,
Yeah.
and it's getting kind of worse. And I don't know, a lot of things are getting harder for independent musicians.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and stream, like just with streaming and everything, that's really hurt. And it's not, I mean, it's great the music is so accessible to folks, but it's not, it's just the fact that musicians aren't being paid fairly. And I think in general our society has this it's like if people were to really think like how miserable and empty our lives would be without art and music, but yet folks don't folks feel like they're entitled to it and that music that's not really work and that musicians don't really deserve to have a living wage for creating it. And it's a part of it is changing, I think, also just changing people's perceptions about around those things on top of like creating, you know, alternative systems of support, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, well, definitely don't want to leave it on the down note, but um, I guess before we end this, yeah, I don't know if you have any, do you have any like parting words of wisdom or positive thoughts that you want to, just like advice or hopes for a future, something like that you want to share with everyone? Yeah, in closing.
Well, yeah, like thank you to everyone. Thank you to you for like organizing all this stuff and like getting the music out. And thank you for everyone who is watching now or like will check this video out in the future. Um, I would say like just if there are any musicians like watching or whatever, I would say just like keep making music and like keep doing your thing. Like your sound and your ideas are like way more important in reality than like getting a ton of attention from like a major label. Like really
Yeah.
like what I think that like the heart of music is kind of like in independent music and DIY scenes and places like Grimalkin Records where like people who wouldn't necessarily get any kind of time of day are actually like getting a chance to like put music out and like share themselves with the world. And to me, like that's like really that's really the most important part of music, is just like sharing perspective, sharing identity, sharing ideas to try to kind of like bring people together to do something like greater, rather than just like the hunt for attention. And so I'd say, you're like, hell yeah, just like keep doing your thing. Like there are people out there who are like-minded and who are looking for like real sounds and real music and real people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always a joy. It's like to talk to you. Like talk about real people. Like it's always it's easy to talk to you. And, you know, I just I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. And I look forward to talking to you. I'm gonna definitely hit you up about the workshop stuff. We're gonna talk soon. We're gonna meet soon about that.
Hell yeah.
But so for everybody who's watching now, or like, hope you'll come out tonight to our Discord. We're having a listening party and chat with Kofi at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're not already on our Discord, there's a link to it in the link tree in our bio. So we hope you'll come by. We'll be listening to February 21, February 21st.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And then you'll have an opportunity to like ask Kofi anything, and we'll be chatting with them. So I hope to see you then, and I'll definitely see you then, Kofi.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right.
Yeah,
I'll see you later.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, cool. Peace.
All right, bye.
Bye.